So my last video was all about how to become a better writer over time. And any athlete knows that you don't become a good athlete overnight. You become it through practice. You have to continually practice, continually improving your craft. And I gave you one piece of the puzzle for building up towards becoming a good writer, for moving yourself from beginner to intermediate to good, to a potentially successful writer. And that is something that has to be a career-long experience. It is a continuous process of improvement. But I realized that there are probably some writers out there, probably a lot of writers out there, who could use some encouragement, some way to improve their writing, see some measurable actual improvement in what they do right now. And I thought of a few simple tips to do, and I was going to make this a 3-tip video, but then I realized that each one of these tips deserves its own focus. And so I'm just going to give you a simple technique to use to take your writing from one point to the next. Now, obviously, again, as athletes know, you have to continually practice, but athletes also know that if you make one tiny tweak to your form, if you make one tiny shift in your concentration or your focus, you can see a measurable improvement right away. It might not be a huge improvement, but it will be an improvement. And so that's what I'm going to try to do for you today. So you can find a lot of tips out there on how to tell better stories. You can find a lot of tips in this channel to do that, right? If you're interested in, by the way, I'm reading off of my list here, so if you're interested in story structure, characterization, or world building, there are plenty of people teaching that, myself included, and a lot of the info that you'll find is solid. Some of it is really good, and some of it is way off base. Or at least it's not very helpful, particularly to someone who's still learning to write. So this is going to be kind of a 101 lesson. I do plenty of these, but so if you're already a successful published author, raking in money and accolades, and you're continually successively writing great stuff, then this might not apply to you. But if you're anyone else, you could probably do with a refresher on the basics. I know I could. I review the fundamentals all the time. And every time I do it, I learn something new. I find a new way to improve my writing. It really helps that I'm a writing teacher, because that means that I have to review the fundamentals every year, because I'm constantly reintroducing them to new students. And so every time I do that, I learn something more about writing and something more about the teaching of writing, how to communicate the concepts clearer and get better writing from my students. So without further ado, here's your technique for today. You might want to write this down. The idea is to start small, and keep it small. So what do I mean by that? Well, this is an absolutely crucial tip for beginners, but this also applies if you've been writing a while. If you've ever wanted to run a marathon and you've never run before, you wouldn't strap on your shoes and go jog 26 miles on day one. You'd kill yourself. Likewise, if you wanted to build a superhero physique and you've never lifted weights before, you wouldn't walk into the gym and try to deadlift 500 pounds for 50 reps. On the mental side, if you want to become a software engineer and you don't even have a grasp of basic logic, much less computer code, you wouldn't sit down at your computer on day one and expect to create the next Google. And yet many people who have never finished a short story, haven't mastered the craft of a cogent paragraph or even a coherent sentence, will sit down at a table full of inspiration and say, "Today I'm going to write a novel." What usually happens to such aspiring novelists? You can probably answer this for yourself. You've probably had the experience if you're a writer. They start off with big dreams and great enthusiasm. They ride the wave of inspiration as far as it'll take them. And then, when they reach a certain point, a page, a chapter, or God forbid, 30,000 words in, 100 pages or more in, they realize They have no idea what the hell they're doing. This is a depressing point in a writer's life, but it's also a necessary one. It's a crucial learning experience to spur the writer's growth. By the way, if you're feeling attacked right now, that's good. That means this message is for you. Keep watching. But also, understand, I'm not saying this from some highfalutin, I'm so much better than you point of view. I've made the mistake of trying to bite off more than I could chew. Not once, not twice, not thrice, hundreds of times. I still do it. I still do it. That's why I say this message is not just for beginners. It's as much for me as it is for anyone else. We all get ahead of ourselves sometimes. We all take on projects that are too big for us, projects that we're not ready for. Now, this isn't completely a bad thing. Again, it's part of learning. It's how we grow. The toxic side of it is that a continuous diet of this kind of overwhelm can bury you. Seemingly endless failure can cause discouragement, and it can stifle growth rather than inspire it. So, every writer, experienced pros as well as untested newbies, needs to recall the principle of keeping it small and to hold it in mind whenever they're doing their work. Now, I'm not saying don't tackle big projects. I'm not even saying wait until you're ready to tackle big projects, because you're never going to know when you're ready until you try. You have to stretch yourself beyond your zone of comfort if you're going to grow. This is the case for anything, writing included. But no matter the size of your project, no matter how skilled or talented you are, you can only write a piece of writing one word at a time. Experienced marathon runners know that their event is not a standing long jump. It's not a sprint. It's not a 5K. They know they have to pace themselves. Many of them plan for each mile, each quarter mile, even each block of the race. They have a plan in mind for every step they take. Even the fastest runner can only finish the race one step, literally, at a time, one foot before the other. And the same applies to writing. So this is one of the core concepts that Anne Lamott talks about in her book Bird by Bird. I've talked about this one before. In chapter 2, Short Assignments, she shows how that when you have a writing project to complete, no matter the size, you need to break it down into chunks small enough for you to manage right here, right now. As Lamott says, say to yourself in the kindest possible way, "Look, honey, all we're going to do for now is write a description of the river at sunrise, or the young child swimming in the pool at the club, or the first time the man sees the woman he will marry. That is all we are going to do for now. We are just going to take this bird by bird. But we are going to finish this one short assignment." This is a necessary attitude. It's a necessary attitude to keep in mind for tackling any big writing project of any size. But it isn't just about productivity. It isn't just about getting it done. As I said at the beginning, this is about improving your writing quality as well as productivity. Keeping it small makes your writing better. Why is this? When you're keeping it small, when your only goal for your writing at the moment is this short assignment in front of you, then you are able to bring more focus to your writing as you do it. You don't want to turn on your inner editor and start second-guessing every word you write before you write it. You can see my previous video on Lamott's concept of unsavory first drafts for more on that. What you want to do is give yourself permission to put all your energy and creativity and concentration into the immediate task at hand, without worrying about how it affects the overall characterization or world building or the intended climax or the themes you're trying to express or even how it affects the next chapter, the next scene, the next paragraph that you have to write. You'll have other times to think about all that. Those are things Some of those are things to think about or to consider in either the planning or revision stages. Some of them are just things to think about when you get to them along this writing path. The problem with trying to keep all that in mind, trying to keep your eye on the big picture while you're trying to write, is that beyond the danger that it could freeze you and prevent you from getting any work done at all, is that if you do go ahead and write with all that on your mind, you're not giving your full attention to the assignment at hand. Your energy is being pulled in different directions, and so you're not making full use of your skills. Thus, your writing quality suffers. You're putting more pressure on your shoulders when revision comes around, if you ever get to that stage. And if or when you do get to that stage, you're usually going to find far more parts of your manuscript that are unsalvageable than you would if you just kept it small in the drafting process to begin with. Let's say your current assignment is to draft the third scene of the second chapter of your novel, where you introduce the hero's best friend and establish their relationship. Now, you can break your assignments down even smaller than this, of course, and at times you're definitely going to want to, but this example is going to illustrate the point. If, while you're writing that scene, you're also thinking about how the new character you're introducing, is going to play into the larger narrative, whether he's going to be a rival or a foil for the hero, how you're going to set up his eventual betrayal of the hero, how the hero is going to react when the new friend character tragically dies, etc. Well, for one thing, good luck getting the scene finished at all. If you do finish it, you're likely going to find that the whole thing is a disjointed, poorly written mess that detracts from more than it adds to the story. Even if it is salvageable, it's far from what you wanted it to be, far from what it could have been if only you'd committed your attention to the assignment at hand. You still have to revise. This is not going to get rid of the revision steps, but you want to make that revision as painless as you possibly can. Doesn't mean you want to overanalyze yourself while you're writing. Hear me out here. Put your concentration on your writing. Don't turn your inner editor on. Now, I'm not blowing smoke here either. I'm not speaking hypothetically. I've heard this story from my own teachers, my own mentors, my peers, and most of whom are traditionally published authors or produced playwrights, working screenwriters, or respected poets. I've seen the difference time and again in my own creative writing students. And over nearly a decade now, I've taught hundreds of students. And of course, I've definitely seen the difference in my own work. I've seen the difference in both productivity and quality when I keep it small and focus on the short assignment at hand versus trying to produce an epic masterpiece while hoping to write a solid scene at the same time. Ugh. If you've paid attention to the majority of material coming out of mainstream Hollywood the past few years, you've probably noticed the significant drop in quality that comes from rushing through things, from focusing exclusively on the bigger picture and the bottom line, like building a franchise, say, to the detriment of the task at hand, the particular project that they're supposed to be working on. Thor 4, anyone? Ultimately, as we've seen, this drop in quality of each individual project has damaged brands and hurt studios' bottom lines. Look at the loss of revenue that Disney suffered last year. That is solely to blame on themselves and their own lack of attention to the quality of their storytelling. This is what comes from forgetting the fundamentals. This is what comes from not keeping it small. So, to show that I walk my talk, allow me to get meta for a minute. Again, my last video was about how good writers become good writers. I realized after the fact that many of you writers, as I said at the beginning, could benefit from learning techniques that you can put into practice right away and see immediate results. I put my mind and my pen to the problem, and I thought about what 3 things that have I learned from my teachers, from my students, from my own experience that I've been able to put into practice in my own writing and see immediate results. That was my first short assignment. That was last Friday night, about a week ago. I spent about an hour at it, really trying to delve into what works, and I discovered my 3 immediately useful techniques. And I was going to make this a clickbaity video where I just give you 3 techniques, I kind of brush over them, and I just say go. But I realized that I need to go in deep, like especially when I started working on this. Saturday morning after my workout, I dropped by the coffee shop with my pen and my notebook and another short assignment, which was to explain what I mean by keeping it small. The first tip or the first technique that I'm giving you. Explain it in a way that is understandable and useful to other writers of various skill levels. I honestly didn't expect it to go this long. I ended up spending over 3 hours in Starbucks, and my pen rarely stopped moving. Don't worry, this video is not 3 hours long. But I never lost track of the assignment. I didn't let my mind drift ahead to the other 2 tips and what I'm going to say about them. I have an idea of what I'm going to say about them, but those are scripts to write for another day. I kept it small, figuratively at least. So I'm breaking this lesson into 3 parts. I'm giving each technique its own special focus, and I'm giving you the chance to put each one to use and see its results for yourself. Now the onus is on you to go and do it. Whether you're just starting on a project or are in the middle of one, or you're simply just practicing your craft to improve your writing before your next project, keeping it small is going to help you. Give it a try. Sit down with your pen and paper, how I usually do it, or your computer, or your typewriter if you're old school, and give yourself a short assignment to complete. It could be a single scene, a dialogue exchange, a descriptive paragraph, or even a single compelling sentence. The most important point is that whatever your short assignment is, that is your only assignment for this writing. You get inspired and want to keep on writing, by all means do so. But don't worry about the big picture right now. Don't worry about the novel as a whole. Don't worry about your writing career. Don't worry even about the entire chapter if you're just focused on a tiny scene or paragraph. Keep it small. And if you do that, and you get that assignment done, you've succeeded. Give yourself a pat on the back. So, thanks for sticking it out with me through this lesson, guys. It may be a bit long, but that's because I firmly believe this is so important. I'd love to hear how this technique works for you. So, particularly whether you've noticed any improvement in your writing quality by doing it. Please post your feedback in the comments. Also, if you haven't yet, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Big thank you to all my subscribers. We're coming up on 200, so I'll have to come up with some kind of special video to do for 200. For my 100 subscriber video, I listed my 11 most significant fiction writing influences. Let me know if you have an idea for what I could do for 200 subscribers. Love to hear your thoughts. And until next time, my friends, good luck and good writing. Peace.